I still remember the exact moment my phone buzzed with her message. It was late in the evening, the kind of quiet night where the world feels slower and you notice every sound in your room. My phone lit up, and I saw her name. A single line stared back at me. At my ex's house, his dad died. Don't be jealous. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the words. My chest tightened, my fingers froze, and I didn't know if I should be angry, worried, or just silent. My mind was caught in a storm. Why was she at her ex's house? Why did she even feel the need to tell me not to be jealous? And in the middle of all of that confusion, there was still the fact that a man had just lost his father. So I swallowed my pride and replied with the only thing that made sense: my condolences. But that one exchange, that small moment, it opened the door to something I never saw coming. When I read those words, I felt two things at once: a sharp sting deep inside me, and a strange pull of compassion. Part of me wanted to ask her, "Why are you there? Why did you run to him, not me?" But another part of me, the part that still loved her, told me to stay calm, to understand, to give her space. That mix of love and hurt tore me in half. On her side, she was sitting in a living room that smelled of old furniture and grief. Her ex was in tears, sitting on the floor, holding his head in his hands, completely broken. His father had just passed away unexpectedly, and in that kind of raw moment, all the old history between them didn't matter. What she saw wasn't she saw a boy who had lost the first man he ever loved, and she felt her heart ache for him. She texted me not because she wanted to hurt me, but because she didn't want me to imagine the worst. She knew how it sounded. She knew how it looked, being at her ex's house, holding him while he cried. But she didn't want me to think that it meant she still loved him. She just wanted me to understand. Still, no matter what she explained later, the truth is, those words planted a seed inside me. Doubt, insecurity, questions I couldn't silence. That night, I lay in bed replaying the message again and again in my head. At my ex's house, his dad died. Don't be jealous. The sentence itself was strange. Why did she even need to add that last part? Was it because she knew my heart would burn at the thought, or because, deep down, a part of her still cared for him in a way that I could never erase? From her side, she later told me, it was pure instinct. She had known her ex for years. They grew up together, went through first loves, first heartbreaks, first dreams. Even after the breakup, there were memories too strong to erase. And when she heard the news about his father, she didn't even think twice. She drove straight there, because grief doesn't wait. She wanted to be there for someone who once meant everything to her, even if that meant risking the peace in her current relationship. For me, though, it wasn't that simple. I lay awake wondering why she didn't call me first, why she didn't ask me to come with her, why she chose to go alone. I thought about how I would feel if the roles were reversed. If my ex had lost someone, would I have gone to her side without even a word? Would I have left my girlfriend sitting at home, waiting, wondering? The honest truth is, I didn't know, and that's what scared me. The next morning, I tried to shake it off. I wanted to be supportive. When she called me, her voice was soft, tired, heavy from crying. She told me about the funeral arrangements, about how broken her ex's family looked, about how it reminded her of losing her own grandmother years ago. I listened. I said all the right things. I told her I was proud of her for being there for someone in pain, but deep inside, I was fighting myself. Every time she said he, I felt a little sting, like a hidden knife pressing deeper into me. On her end, she could hear it. She could sense that my silence wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. She knew me well enough to hear the weight in my breathing. That night, she sat on her bed, phone in her hand, wondering how to explain something that didn't have clean words. She didn't want me to see her compassion as betrayal. She didn't want me to think her tears were for him because she still loved him. They were for a family losing a father, for memories of a man who once drove them to the beach, who once laughed at their silly jokes. She didn't want to erase her past. She just didn't want her past to erase us. But jealousy is a quiet poison. It doesn't shout. It doesn't announce itself. It just sits there, in the corners of your mind, whispering. I found myself checking my phone more often, waiting for her messages, reading too much into every word she sent. When she said, "I'm staying late, helping the family with arrangements," my chest would tighten. When she said, "He's not eating, I'm trying to make sure he does," my stomach turned. I wanted to be proud of her kindness, but another voice in me asked, why him? Why not me? Why do you still feel so responsible for him? Meanwhile, she was caught in a storm of her own. Every time she looked at her ex, she saw the broken version of the boy she once knew. It was confusing, not because she wanted him back, but because pain has a way of breaking down walls. She would drive home late at night, her heart heavy, wondering how to tell me the truth without making it worse. She wanted to say, "I'm with you, I love you, nothing has changed." But she also wanted me to accept that her compassion for her ex didn't erase her love for me. It became a silent war between us, my unspoken doubts, her unspoken guilt. I smiled at her when she walked through the door. She kissed me on the cheek, but between our eyes, there was something we weren't saying. The turning point came a week later. She came over after another long day with his family. She looked exhausted, her hair messy, her eyes red from crying. I tried to hold her hand, but she pulled away gently and said, "I know what you're thinking." And in that moment, my heart almost stopped, because the truth was, yes, I had been thinking the worst. I had been imagining moments between them, moments I didn't want to picture. And hearing her say those words made me realize she could feel the distance growing too. She sat down on the couch, and for the first time, she told me her side completely. She told me about the moment she got the call, about how her first instinct was to go, not because she loved him, but because she couldn't stand the thought of him facing that pain alone. She told me about how awkward it felt to sit in that house, how memories came flooding back, but how none of those memories changed the fact that she wanted a future with me. She told me she added the words, "Don't be jealous," in her text because she was scared. Scared that I would take her kindness as betrayal, scared that I would stop trusting her. I listened, and for the first time, I understood the weight she was carrying too. But that didn't erase the storm inside me. It didn't erase the images my mind had created. And that's when I realized the hardest part of love isn't choosing someone, it's choosing them again and again. Even when doubts try to pull you away. I told her the truth too. I told her how much it hurt, how I lay awake at night imagining things I didn't want to imagine, how my heart twisted every time she said he. I told her I wasn't angry at her, but at the situation, at the way life had put us in this test. And for the first time, she held my hand tightly, looked me in the eyes, and said, "Then let's face it together. Don't carry it alone. Don't fight me in your mind. Talk to me." And in that moment, something shifted. We didn't solve everything overnight. The doubts didn't vanish instantly, but we opened the door to honesty. Looking back now, I realized something powerful. Love isn't tested when everything is easy. It's tested in those moments when the past comes knocking, when jealousy whispers, when trust feels fragile. She didn't stop being who she was, someone who feels deeply, who cares for others, even those from her past. And I had to decide if I loved her enough to accept that part of her too. From her side, she had to learn that my silence wasn't strength, it was fear, that I needed words, I needed reassurance, I needed to feel like I wasn't just standing in the shadow of someone else's grief. It wasn't easy, but slowly, we found balance. She still checked in on her ex's family now and then, but she included me, she shared everything. She let me see her heart fully, so I wouldn't have to guess. And I stopped reading jealousy into every sentence, stopped letting my imagination torture me. Because in the end, what mattered wasn't where she went that night, or what memories came up, but the fact that she chose to come back to me every time. So when I think back to that first text at my ex's house, his dad died, "Don't be jealous," I don't see it as the start of our end anymore. I see it as the start of a lesson we both had to learn, that trust isn't built in easy times. It's built in moments where it could break, but doesn't. And maybe that's what real love is, not perfect, not free from doubt, but strong enough to survive it. So, if you're listening to this, if you've ever felt jealousy burn inside you, or feared losing someone to their past, remember this. Sometimes, it's not about fighting their past. It's about building a future so strong that the past doesn't scare you anymore. And that's what we're still trying to do every single day. If this story touched you, remember, love survives only when we choose to trust, even when it's hardest.